Electricast.
Hold on to your butts.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Wesley demands.
Now this affects Iris. Iris, where are you?
What you feel only matters to you.
I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Iris, I have a tip for you.
Don't take drugs!
Or Whatever Movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up, and welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host, Iris, and I'm here with my older brother,
Pinko.
Today we're talking a movie from 2023, The BIKERIDERS. Stupid title alert, stupid title alert.
It's a little bit clunky, but it lends to some authenticity. Like, hey, we don't care about flashy Hollywood movies or succinct titles or even evocative titles. We're going with authenticity here. My favorite critical blurb from a user called it Sons of Monotony.
That's a play, of course, on Sons of Anarchy.
Which this ain't. But it seems like, because this trailer seemed misleading, that they were trying to convince you it's a motorcycle movie like Sons of Anarchy.
I don't think there's 1 second of interview in the trailer to suggest that this is like a retelling or a factual story. Jodie Comer is arguably the main character of this film, and I don't think plays more than a few seconds at that in a secondary role in the trailer.
I mean, it's a motorcycle dude movie. At least that's how it's positioned. For sure, I get it. It's just not what this movie ended up being. She's definitely the heart of this movie. That's not true. Probably Benny is the heart of this movie, but she's got her finger on the pulse, I guess.
Well, Benny is at the center of the love triangle, but Kathy is our narrator. And she has a limited perspective, especially when it comes to Johnny.
She does, but she's also the person who illustrates the love triangle, as you put it, which is ever so clear because of Kathy's interviews. I think she understands the dynamic. She doesn't understand their dedication, motivation to the Vandals, either Johnny or Benny, but I think she understands, from a human perspective, their dynamic.
Is it because of Kathy that I also do not understand their dedication to the Vandals? Like Benny at the bar refusing to take off the colors? Why?
This is the dude perspective, I think. This is Johnny hunching over, leaning forward on the couch, watching The Wild One, and this sort of need to belong and to be a part of something. And at that, an important part of something, a respected part of something. And Kathy not understanding that as much. When she walks into this thing with her friend, it's nothing but attention. It's nothing but acceptance, likely the wrong kind, not what she's looking for, but she's also looking for a hot, dangerous biker dude, or one catches her eye. Whereas these guys don't have anything but the Vandals. The Vandals is their social circle, their acceptance, their family.
And I think they're the extension and certainly the display of their power. That's at least what draws the youngin', who ultimately is Johnny's undoing, to the Vandals. At least that's what I read into it when he's first introduced to the Vandals as they pass by and he and his buddies are stealing hubcaps.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that, but I guess if I knew more about Benny's backstory, if I knew that he had basically nothing and this was his family, of course, that's what I took from it, but I didn't have the evidence to suggest like kind of his orphan status and how important the Vandals were to him, like as a family. This is my complaint about all of these characters. Kathy is simply a function of Benny in this story, despite being our narrator. All I know about Kathy is that at least she thinks that at one point she was respectable, and she's not necessarily anymore. Does she work? Does she have family in Chicago? Like, what is she doing for those years that Benny is off riding with another crew in Milwaukee or Wisconsin or wherever? Like, who is Kathy? Who are these people? And why don't we know more about them?
Someone said that this runtime was pretty lean, and I was like, what? This movie is 2 hours. But it feels a little bit languid, and it feels like there could have been time to explore, to pack more in, but there's not. It's 50s, 60s music, and it's, long looks and intimate, awkward moments and stuff, and not a word. You said that Benny was an orphan, and that piqued my interest. I was like, wait, how do you know he's an orphan?
I mean, I don't. But why else would he be so completely dedicated to this if he didn't consider it to be his family? The only other thing the filmmakers gave us was his joyride, where he's escaping, at least for a time, the police. Like, that to me suggested that this movie is about freedom. And I think that's corroborated by Benny saying, I don't want the responsibility of leadership. I don't ask anything of people. I don't want people to ask anything of me. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing the conversation that he has with Johnny when Johnny is trying to bestow the mantle of the Vandals on Benny. So what I'm saying is, like, I'm getting bits and pieces and I'm stringing them together, and the filmmakers are probably like, what's the problem? You got it, but I guess I wanted more.
So this movie is a vibe from start to finish, and it's either a vibe you vibe with or not. It's a little bit weird. I was like, Cockroach, the guy who's eating bugs, the guy, bugs aren't that bad for you. He's got a wife and a kid. And when he starts talking about eating bugs, they like walk away during the interview.
Right. Which I read into, like, is she embarrassed? Is she like, oh, there he goes again, talking about them bugs?
When Benny is out in front of Kathy's house for the night, much to the ire of her boyfriend, he doesn't have home to go to. Where does he shower? Where does he keep his hair product? When he rides off into the night, he doesn't go anywhere. We see Johnny with his girls when he's watching The Wild One, and he's like, yeah, move out of the way. They're like in the way. In that one scene with his wife, they never even make eye contact. So it really is about the three of them and the ancillary characters that affect some of the decisions that they make. And that's really it. And I'm kind of okay with that, at least within the scope of this runtime. Maybe in the Bike Riders 2, Biketopia, there's like a big expansive thing or whatever, and you understand where they come from and what shaped them and who makes their leather jackets and stuff. But in this one, we're keeping it pretty simple.
Going back to Kathy's boyfriend, what would you have done in that situation?
He was the most soundly logical person in the movie. He was like okay with his girl and her friend going off to some biker party or whatever. And he's like, where the hell have you been? When she comes home holding on to this adorable biker man guy, goes upstairs, and he has the audacity. It's very disrespectful of Benny, who doesn't care about anything, to come back and just chill outside the house in full view of the boyfriend. She didn't even know he was out there until the next morning. My question is, how she said, you better get out of here, because if my boyfriend sees you, he's going to be real mad. But the boyfriend knew he was there, was definitely up all night looking out the window. He's still there. But then in the morning, we don't see him leave and we don't see the confrontation. He's still there. And she's like, when he comes back, he's going to be mad. How did the boyfriend go off to work without seeing Benny still there? Or why didn't we see that part? It was a little bit confusing, but that dude had the good sense to come home and be like, this is unacceptable. I'm out of here. I understand my self-worth and will preserve that by packing my stuff and piecing out, because this is obviously an unhealthy situation. Gotta give it to Kathy's boyfriend.
And also had the good sense to not confront Benny, perhaps knowing his limitations and also not delving deeper into the drama.
Yeah, he did it at speed through glass, called him an a-hole, and pieced out.
So it sounds like you would have done basically what Kathy's boyfriend did.
I don't know, but I don't think he overreacted. And we were like, get out of here, man, so we can focus on the dreamboat. I think it was definitely, he wasn't a bad character, poor dude.
So is Austin Butler trying to shed the dreamboat persona with this role of Benny?
Oh, not at all.
I mean, he's definitely going for bad boy.
He's going for bad boy in his attitude and that he doesn't care. And for a dude who values freedom, he chose to be as not free as humanly possible. He got shacked up with a woman who wasn't really into the culture or understand. He spent the whole movie trying to convince her to come to meetings and hang out, and she, the whole movie, trying to convince him to leave. He was like, I want to be free, and I'll be damned if you're going to tell me that I have to take this jacket off. So I'll spend 3 months with my foot cut off in the hospital and in a motel, not being able to move or ride. I'm going to say, screw you, cops, and I'm not going to pull over, so that when you catch me, I have 18 charges against me. It was all about Benny and freedom, and he was nothing but tied down in this movie, either with the Vandals, with the police, or with Kathy.
The irony. It's like right up there with the irony of using the entire Shangri-La's discography, but never playing leader of the pack.
Yeah, and it was a little bit too on the nose. But you know what else is on the nose? Did you hear the song in the closing credits called The Bike Riders?
Nope.
That was penned and performed by the brother of director Jeff Nichols, Ben Nichols, circa 2005.
Oh, is this band by any chance Black Rebel Motorcycle Club?
No, but I think the story came directly from his brother's band's story about Benny and Kathy. Yeah, but to go back to answer your earlier question, Austin Butler is definitely, because we have been talking about this movie for a while now and never brought up motorcycles. It's all about this intimate, relationship of these three main characters, and Austin Butler is nothing if not baby oiled and blue-eyed and perfectly coiffed and doing that little smile or something. Director Jeff Nichols called him the most attractive person he's ever met in his entire life. But this is like if Brando and James Dean were in a movie together and that's all James Dean does is smolder. I can't think of a single line of dialogue that dude ever spoke because it's just that look. And people are like, oh my God, look at his hair. And Mom kept a weird glossy in the cabinet where the canned food is for decades.
Of James Dean.
Oh, that's who Austin Butler is channeling. He's beautiful as Benny, and that's it. Maybe he's smart. Maybe he's loyal. Maybe he's got this freedom complex that he can never really quite pull off. But he's definitely looking to be pretty.
So it's kind of got this multi-generational feel where I guess these guys grew up in the 50s and are now riding bikes in their extended adolescence in the 60s and the 70s. And they complain about the kids in the new generation. And I don't understand how Benny is not a kid. Somehow he's an old soul and he belongs to this other generation with Johnny and Zipco and Cockroach and all these guys. And also, Tom Hardy I think Tom Hardy has fully shed the pretty boy thing.
Well, he's got the pretty angles that you can play up. He was a model, and now he's got kind of more of a bulbous nose and distinct forehead wrinkles, but also he's got scars. Did you note the scars on his face, on his cheekbones, which is exactly where he would be cut from multiple fistfights? And I agree he doesn't play pretty, but he's still kind of a pretty dude.
Now it's like he takes these roles and then he takes pieces of them with him. There was definitely parts of Capote in Johnny. There was definitely parts of what other ugly roles he done recently.
He's kind of ugly throughout Venom. He's all busted and never polishes up. He's nonstop sweaty and stubbly.
Yes, this is what I'm saying. And this is his new MO, and he can't shake it off anymore. And he's never wanted to be the pretty guy. I don't think he's been pretty since that movie with Reese Witherspoon or Inception.
Okay, fair enough. The pretty thing I get, especially for the young principals, they fell in love and it was an instant, immediate attraction. And Benny is, as much as he tries to not pretty himself up, Johnny on the other side of it doesn't have anything to prove to anyone, or at least he wishes he didn't have anything to prove. But this is where this life, I guess, takes you over time. It seemed like this movie was patient and took us from time period to time period, but it did not feel like the time between the motorbike races when he's like, we should start a motorcycle club, it'll give us something to do. And by the time it blew up and he met his untimely fate, was that far apart? I'm not sure. Now, like Civil War, at what point did you know for sure that Johnny wasn't coming back?
Eggs or whatever. He's if she's asking him to continue life, to bring back some groceries in a semblance of normalcy, he knew too that he wasn't. You heard it in his answer that he wasn't going to. He was like, yeah, all right, that's not happening, because I know that I'm going to my untimely demise.
Maybe the movie knew, maybe Johnny knew, or maybe he had an idea because he also sought out some kind of closure. He was hoping for Benny, but he sought out that weird, awkward exchange with Kathy on the stoop.
Right.
It did seem like he knew what was happening, but I don't think he expected it, because he showed up with a knife in hand. He's like, all right, let me go get this taken care of. I'll be right back, kind of thing. And they were like, go get him or whatever. And I don't think he expected that kid to come out shooting, which I definitely, I was like, that's not a knife.
none of us knew what to expect. I certainly didn't expect the kid to Indiana Jones just like outright shoot him, but we can tell that Johnny was prepared. He was prepared for the possibility, and even in some way maybe ready for it, or at least, yeah, like you said, tying up the loose ends. Speaking of that awkward exchange, I was really hoping for more from that. I'm like, here it comes. Final showdown between Johnny and Kathy. Who's going to win Benny's heart? And then they kind of just chit-chatted for a while, and Johnny was like, all right, so see you around, Kathy. Take care of yourself. And she's like, you too.
Life is hard, but finding a really great podcast makes the days go by so much easier. Hi, my name is Blue Telusma. I'm a writer, an emotional intelligence coach, and the host of Humanize with Blue Telusma, a podcast where we believe that when you humanize everyone in the room, a great conversation is almost guaranteed. Join us every week here on Electricast as me and my guest co-hosts unpack big topics and interview even bigger personalities with a sense of humor and a dash of mischief. If you're looking for a new best friend in your head, we've got you covered. Electricast.
Ooh, Johnny.
Well, she kept asking him, like, what are you here for? What do you need, Johnny? What are you doing here? Kind of thing. And he was just never able to elucidate.
What were the mechanics of Cockroach getting out of the Vandals? What did Benny mean when he said, is this who we are now? I was like, yeah, who are you? Because I don't get it.
I mean, even more than that, I think more cryptic was Johnny's statement that was taking care of Cockroach in the way that Johnny knew how to do. And I think there are two possibilities. Number one, Cockroach volunteered that he was going to turn in his colors because he wanted to be a motorcycle cop. There were two elements there. The new Vandals, the ones coming from Columbus or Dangerous, Ohio or Ottawa or wherever those dudes were from, are like, you want to be a cop? And he probably deserved to be beaten down just for that reason alone. But turning in his colors and abandoning his brothers was something unacceptable to a group of dudes who were just looking to belong. And so the beating that he took, where they broke 2 ribs, I kind of understood that. I wasn't surprised, and I wouldn't have turned my back to go pee, even though he was obviously drunk. But then he, with respect and not shying away, not slinking away into the night or leaving and discharging, checking out of the hospital by himself and running off into the night, approaches Johnny directly with a broken arm or whatever, or his arm in a sling, and was like, I am going to leave. And he was like, all right, I'll take care of you. But then he shot him in the leg. Now, was that to show him that his disrespect in leaving or whatever couldn't be tolerated, but he never intended to kill him? Or was part of that a show so that obvious, disrespect had to be met with punishment so that nobody else would mess with him? Cockroach is gone? Yeah, but I shot him. But he took a bullet for his troubles and I missed his head or whatever and got him in the leg or something. But then he was like, go, get out of here. Don't ever come back. And I think that was from Johnny's perspective. This is what I have to do. And once you're gone, stay gone because I can't, otherwise I can't protect you again. And I think that was taking care of him in the only way that Johnny could so he wouldn't die or get killed later on because, like Kathy said, now when the biker gangs see each other, they just kill each other on sight. It's the only way to jump him out in a way that looked respectful to the Vandals of the institution it had become.
Because Johnny's a big softy. He wants a successor, and he obviously can't bequeath the bike club to his kids, and he loves Benny, even if he isn't able to elucidate it. And Cockroach is his friend. And so I definitely agree that when he said, I'll take care of you, there was a double meaning there. It was both, I'm going to take care of you as a friend, but also I have to take care of you as in take care of business.
So if he says, I'm going to leave because I told my old lady I would do it and I've always wanted to be a motorcycle cop, then good for you. Of any of the Vandals, Johnny should have been able to understand that. As much as he didn't seem to be like the responsible, doting family man or whatever, he at least understood the needs of family in a way that Benny as a kid, or more of a kid, didn't. He didn't really, he kind of pushed and pulled against Kathy the whole time. But this sort of brings me to what I really want to talk about, which is what I think the Bike Riders was really about, was this idea of who Johnny was, what the Vandals was, and why it went wrong, and why I don't think he was, I think that if he were writing Johnny, the character's story, that would have been the ideal way. He didn't see it coming. He was just sort of there doing his thing, taking care of business, and the next thing he was relieved of that obligation. And that was the only way for Johnny to go out, because you'll notice that Benny disappeared. He had to get away from Johnny. It's not me. It's never going to be me. Is this what we become? He understood how bad the Vandals had gotten, had to leave everybody, had to leave Kathy, had to leave Johnny, the whole crew, because there was no way he wasn't also going to die, because that dude didn't care. And he didn't mind the shovel blows and the fist fights and the glass hands that were going to come from him doing anything other than what he had been doing. And you note that the second he hears that Johnny dies, he gets up, leaves the bar from wherever he was, Indiana or something, and goes back to Kathy in Chicago. And then after never seeing a single ounce of emotion, breaks down in tears on the porch because he was out, because he was free of what the guy he loved, what Johnny wanted from him that he could never do.
And I think the imperative there is free. He wasn't necessarily mourning Johnny. He had already kind of put Johnny and Kathy to a certain extent behind him. He was more relieved by the fact that he was free of the Vandals, this thing that he himself could never leave, but it could leave him in the form of Johnny's passing, and which is representative of the passing of an era.
The golden days of the motorcycle clubs? Is that what she called it?
Yeah, that's how Kathy said that somebody else had basically lined up the end of the golden days of the motorcycle era with Johnny's untimely death.
And for Johnny, you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain.
So even if it is being tied to a mechanic's job and, being a weekend warrior, enjoying yourself by drinking beer with your friend in the lawn chair in your garage, kind of a thing, which Kathy seems perfectly happy with. And she gets her man. So she gets her thing, and which is why I feel like Kathy is our main character. She's the only one that wants anything in this movie. She wants Benny. I don't understand why, other than the fact that he's pretty. Maybe it's because he represents some element of freedom that she's after and is the embodiment of that. And to a certain extent, Johnny wants Benny too, but not enough to drive this plot forward. Tons of monotony. I mean, this movie suffers from this lack of drive, which is so ironic considering it's a biking movie. And maybe I'm taking it personally because Danny, the recorder, what is his motivation? Is it purely artistic, or is Danny invested in a way that goes beyond, the objective?
This is a romanticized time, not just after the fact, not in 2024, but Johnny saw in Brando in the Wild One something he clearly wanted to emulate. He wasn't exactly that type of person. He wasn't a wild one. He was trying to hold this idea together of a group of friends who could be crazy, but not a worldwide crime organization. So I don't think that Danny was necessarily like this is a historic moment, recording it for posterity, but it is definitely a unique thing. This might be the modern perspective. Like, hey, 60 years from now, we're going to look back on this and think this was such a cool, odd, specific era, when motorcycle gangs were a thing. These were the social outcasts on the fringe. But I think he was recording something that was interesting and wanted to be a part of it while staying slightly removed. He identified a cultural movement that he wanted to preserve or capture because he didn't most people don't understand it. The Bike Riders is about the perception of a certain kind of people, like Johnny says, a unique thing, at least, that's ruined by people.
It's about a human thing that is manifest in riding bikes, right? Because it's not about riding bikes. It's not even about chopping bikes, which I was happy to learn what a chopper actually is.
Kelly Ray said that same thing. Before it was explicit, she was like, oh, choppers, that's why it's called choppers. And I was like, no, it's not why. Oh, it is.
But what the Bike Riders represents, what the Vandals represent is friendship. That's what they came for, belonging. That's what Johnny was defending when he rebuffs the kid, because the kid is willing to turn his back on his friends, which is the opposite of what the Vandals is about. I mean, they're not about uplifting one another and supporting each other in traditional ways, but they won't turn their back on each other. And loyalty is high currency. So it's about a very human thing that's represented by a very distinctly cultural thing that we're supposed to get immersed in. And I think this is overall my critique of the Bike Riders, is that we don't understand more about these characters' motivations.
It's interesting because I had adopted your position. I've seen the Bike Riders twice, and I found that all the notes I made from my first viewing are irrelevant now. I think that I skimmed the surface, and in watching it second time critically, I found very different things. Benny is a rebel, and he'll never ever be any good. And then that note doesn't apply at all. And I would say the same doesn't apply for Johnny, because it's not about him being the rebel, pretty boy, kind of doesn't matter, doesn't care about his looks, is going to fight and get his foot chopped off by a shovel, any more than it is really about Johnny wanting to fight or be knife fighters, or to bring kids in who are like, you want us to steal? We'll steal stuff. You want us to beat people up? We'll kill them. Which is ultimately what the kid brought the Vandals to be, because that is his position. Not at all Johnny's position. Like you said, I think the key word, the best possible word, is loyalty. When he wants to go to his original Vandals friend's funeral, they were going to show up in solidarity and loyalty, because it was never about the parents, get out of here, spitting in his face. It was about them being rejected by their family and them finding loyalty and community together. He doesn't understand how this went so wrong, why he can't get the beautiful bike that his friend chopped away from the friend's dad, who just kept it in the basement after he died. He couldn't understand why things were going so poorly, why Kathy almost got raped, why anyone would want to leave the Vandals. And yet it became something terrible. And I see Johnny now as nothing but a tragic figure. You can see the pain on his face and his dismissal of the kid, and his yearning and getting awkwardly close to Benny and saying, it has to be you. He stutters when he says, I need you, kid, because he almost can't say it. And the real tragedy is how this thing got away from him. They got away from the Vandals in the only way that was really possible. Benny had to leave or die, and Johnny just had to die.
He kind of had to die because he was representative of this era. You're getting quality, emotive, human stuff from the Bike Riders. And maybe this story is better viewed as an epic. These are archetypal characters who are, they're stuff of legends, of a bygone time that we can appreciate in these tragic or otherwise overtures. And maybe that's enough. I don't know. You're kind of turning me here, because I was beelining my way to boring, but maybe with a different perspective, this ain't so bad.
So yeah, the era that you're talking about, this is the crumbling of that era that we're witnessing. It's curious and a moment frozen in time because it was so fleeting. You look at the Bike Riders and their lifestyle, and you're like, that was really a thing. And they don't do that thing to this degree really anywhere anymore, except in Japan, because those guys are weirdos. And they still have leather jackets, and they have Elvis clubs and stuff. Bike gangs still exist, but not in this original inception, this idea that it's a bunch of guys and they have a club, because that's what they do, is they talk about motorcycles all day, mostly because they don't have families and they're outcasts and they're just looking to belong, except the lead dude who has a family and belongs and has a job and responsibility, wants to be free like Benny, wants to have that devil-may-care romantic attitude about everything. And just can't. He's not that dude. He says you give everything you got to a thing, and it's still going to do what it's going to do. And the Vandals got away from Johnny. Benny got away from Johnny. So he kind of resigned himself to his fate as a causality of the machine that he created that got away from him. But I get it. They're all surface in a way. I think Jodie Comer did a fantastic job bringing that heavy Chicago accent. I thought that for the few scenes where she had to act and emote, the near rape scene being one of them, I thought she did a fantastic job. Mike Faist is the best cigarette smoking, no sleeves having, kind of squinty-eyed reporter dude ever. I think Tom Hardy has the softest Brando touch imaginable to a muscly, bulbous-nosed, slick-haired, scarred-up, tough guy.
Type.
And Austin Butler, I think he was more surface even than I'm willing to admit, because he was no emotion, no cry, do whatever, doesn't care. And then until his turn is that eventually he cared, and then he showed emotion, and then he cried, and he was smiling over the pool table or smiling outside Kathy's house, and then in the end he's smiling out behind Kathy's house in his mechanic's uniform. Not a massive turn, just what Benny needed to do to get out is he got out, and then he came back. But I do feel like reading between the lines, I can understand how Benny is the flashier role, but I'm all about Tom Hardy and the Bike Riders. And I definitely give this an all right, but I don't know that I would have said that an hour and a half in on my first viewing. It was beautifully shot on film. I thought the period was immaculate. It doesn't take place in the cities, really. It's all kind of out on the road or in the lots, we know, with the dirt bikes and stuff, but those were real bikes. I think it was perfectly cast. A little bit slow until I delved beneath the surface, and then I kind of got what I needed, enough to turn me around for the second viewing of the Bike Riders, for sure.
And there you have it. You got an all right from Wes and a good from Iris.
Oh, look at
and
that.
That's our discussion on the Bike Riders. You jumped me in. What did you think of the Bike Riders? Let us know, 818-835-0473 or whatevermovies@gmail.com. And if you enjoy our podcast, why don't you give us a 5-star rating? It helps other people find us. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Hi, I'm Geraldine Glass, and I'm excited to share a new healing music offering, an extended version song called Joy Reboot, a unique fusion of pop, classic, rap, soundscapes, and funk to inspire collaboration and bring unity through sound. For us, Joy Reboot is music medicine, out now with Electrocast Records.
Hey guys, it's Miriam Love here, and I want to share something very special with you. Check out my new release, All In, the Spanish remixes, out now on Electrocast Records. And always remember, be love, share love, all love.
Available now wherever you listen to music.
Electrocast.